Hello, guys. Thank you for tuning in to Saving the Republic. Tonight we have a bit of a special edition. As most of you know, we are all conservative valued people, but that does not mean that we are not willing to have discourse with other viewpoints. So tonight we have a special guest. You will be introduced to her soon. College Democrat, communications director at University of Texas at Austin. Tonight we are going to be discussing various things all the way from the 2020 election, Joe Biden, Bernie dropping out, whether or not she's a Bernie bro, and we might have some polite discourse. It will all be polite, and yeah, enjoy this content. We will be putting out more content in the future, so here it is.
All right, so we have Alex Evans here from the University of Texas. I'm gonna let her introduce herself.
Hi, y'all. I'm Alex. I go to UT. I do a lot of work with the Young Democratic Socialists of America, the University Democrats, Students for Bernie, and a couple other organizing groups.
Awesome. We just have a few questions today about Joe Biden. So first of all, how do you feel about him getting the nominee?
I mean, I don't think any of us in Students for Bernie were very hopeful that the Democratic Party would represent the interests of the people. The consolidation of Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar around Super Tuesday was just a really unprecedented power move for two candidates in that situation to drop out. So it definitely felt a little bit like a betrayal of the system, from the system. I can say that when a candidate gets 70% of the youth vote, like Bernie Sanders did, and the Democratic Party goes with another candidate, historically, that has never worked out for the party. So it'll be interesting in November.
Mm-hmm. So have your feelings towards the whole Democratic Party changed after this, or you just still feel the same?
I've never really had strong feelings towards the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm.
I organized in it because I truly believe in local politics. It's the best way to instant change. So no, they haven't really changed, but I was never really hopeful for the Democratic Party as the establishment it is right now.
So this is kind of okay.
Real quick, sorry, Kelly. Kelly knows Alex more than the rest of us do. But Alex, did you so I mean, obviously you were a Bernie supporter before he dropped out, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so how do you I'm just trying to get an honest opinion. It didn't bother you his age at all? That wasn't kind of a because for me, I mean, I don't think it's a secret that I'm a conservative. So when I see, most of our nominees, Trump's the youngest person in the race and he's in his 70s, I was seeing Bernie and he just had a heart attack. And so you weren't concerned about any of that, or were you? What are y'all's kind of beliefs on that? I think we tend to forget that.
I mean, I think it sucks in general that that the people leading us are often, 70, 80 years old and maybe don't have the interests of the youth in mind. Bernie Sanders' heart attack in October was very scary for a lot of his supporters, but he came back healthy. He released all of his health reports in a timely manner. They all seemed fine. His BMI was fine. Every level was fine. So no, it wasn't really a concern for me. His age wasn't a concern for me so much because he is so in touch with the youth. He was relatively healthy. He had a heart attack, but a lot of people recover from heart attacks. So no, I wasn't super concerned.
Okay.
Cool.
I guess I have one question. This is kind of like not really a joke, but it's not as serious, I guess. Okay, have you seen the compilation videos of him sniffing people's hair? Okay.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on that? Do you think he's a creep, or do you think he's just clueless?
No, I think he's a creep. He's a creep. But I mean, I think Donald Trump's a creep too. So
I see both sides for sure. There's one more question I have. Let me find it.
I've got a question. So with all that said, it sounds like you're definitely not a huge Biden fan, but do you see yourself voting for Joe Biden, or do do you think you'll vote third party? I mean, I personally voted third party in 2016, so I can totally
Yeah.
understand
Um,
why you would.
yeah, so a lot of my friends have decided to vote third party, and I understand why. But my biggest concern is one that actually Noah Chomsky brought up earlier today, and it was that if the Democratic Party wins without the left wings, they will never try to appeal to us again. So strategically, I'm going to go vote. I feel like I'm voting between, quite frankly, two rapists, Joe Biden or Donald Trump. And it's very difficult for me to make that decision, but I've rationalized in my brain. I'll do whatever I can to push him left into policy, Joe Biden left into policies that I think matter. And so will the left and youth movements of the Democratic Party. So yeah, I'll probably vote for Joe Biden, but I'm not going to condemn anyone for not doing so.
So putting personal morals, I mean, I'm a pretty strong Christian, so I mean, there's stuff that Trump does too that I'm just kind of like, okay, I don't know that that's the best thing to do. But putting, personal stuff aside and just looking at policies and law and, who you have in your cabinet, how do you feel about Joe Biden's future cabinet, maybe potential VP, compared to what Bernie had going or what was going to have going?
I mean, it's inferior to what Bernie would have had. With Bernie Sanders, I think for VP, we were looking at Nina Turner, possibly Ro Khanna. We were setting up another generation of progressives to continue the legacy past Bernie Sanders. I don't think Joe Biden's will be terrible. I think it'll just be a strong implementation of the status quo as we knew it before Trump. So yeah.
So were you we'll get back to Kelly's questions in a second, but this is just killing me not to ask. Were you a fan of the performance of the Obama administration, or do you have your list of complaints? So you were not a fan?
No,
so,
my problem with the Obama administration is, first off, the continuation of imperialism, but also the facade of being a progressive while continuing to push centrist policies. That was my difficulty with the Obama administration. Do I think he was a decent leader? Sure. Do I think he's preferable to what we have now? Sure. But I don't have any Obama worship in me, no.
So you don't think that Biden's presidential race would just be another 4 years of Obama?
No, not really. Joe Biden, just health-wise, like, we have those complications of him sniffing hair, but we also have complications of him forgetting what he's saying and things along those nature. So I don't think he's even as stable as Obama. I don't think he's going to inspire as many people as Obama did, being, first off, younger, and then the first Black president. And Joe Biden historically has been more conservative than Obama. Joe Biden supported the Hyde Amendment. He supported the 1994 crime bill, et cetera, et cetera. So no, I don't think it's the same. I don't think it'll be much different, but,
I've got a question. Who would you hope to see as Joe Biden's VP pick?
There are a lot of people I hope that aren't necessarily rational, and he's not going to pick them. So out of all his potential VPs, I would hope for Elizabeth Warren. I'm not a huge Elizabeth Warren fan, but I think she's the most left he would be willing to go for a VP. I doubt he'll pick her. If I had to choose between Kamala Harris and Stacey Abrams, who seem to be the front runners right now, I would probably choose Kamala, just because Stacey Abrams at some points has appeared very careerist to me, and I don't necessarily like that. And Kamala was once the front runner at the point, so I think she has the potential of uniting the party. So that's who I would probably choose.
Well, building up on Nate's thing, a lot of the times I hear people talking about, oh, who's the VP going to be? Who's the VP going to be? And yes, it's an important, it's the second most important position. I mean, it's important. But in this case, it's way more important because Joe Biden shows, now this is, a borderline conspiracy. He shows serious signs of dementia, signs of just illness. No, it doesn't even have to be dementia. It doesn't have to be dementia. It's just illness.
He's not well.
And I don't think he'd make it 4 years. Definitely not 8 years as posed. Yeah. It would have to be set down to VP. That's why we talk about it so much.
No, I agree. And that's why Elizabeth Warren would be my first pick. Kamala would be my next. I don't have any love for Amy Klobuchar. I would have difficulty justifying that, but yeah.
I've got a question. It's kind of not really Joe Biden, but so Tulsi Gabbard, that's someone that kind of a lot of like libertarian and conservatives kind of like in some ways. I like her in some ways. Obviously, like overall, I mean, there's still lots of things I disagree with, but I was kind of curious. What do you think, being someone on the left, what do you think of Tulsi Gabbard? Do you think she's like a Russian asset, or like what are your thoughts about her?
No, I don't think Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian asset, but I think she has shown a lot of acts of political cowardice in her terms as a senator and etc. In 2016, she left the DNC because of her support of Bernie Sanders, and then she backed Biden randomly when she dropped out, likely because she was offered a cabinet position. And when she chose to vote, she chose to abstain from the vote on the impeachment rather than just having the backbone to either say no or yes. That I don't think she's a Russian asset. I don't hate her like a lot of the Democratic Party does. But I mean, I'm not a Tulsi Gabbard stan by any means.
I'm really glad Skylar asked that, because I mean, we're talking about Tulsi Gabbard would go on Tucker Carlson like every other week, and granted, they don't agree on anything, but it's the concept of, okay, I'm gonna go on someone's show who doesn't agree with me, and that is something that, in my opinion, as not a Democrat, I think that's a giant problem that we currently have. Just the need to not go talk to someone who disagrees with you. I saw Andrew Yang go on Ben Shapiro's Sunday Special. So, okay, maybe there's hope. And Ben Shapiro said he was the only person to accept his offer. And I think he paid them heavily to come interview. I mean, he was willing to. So it just shocks me that so many people, and I personally think that other networks attacked Tulsi simply because she went on Fox. But anyway, but I'm glad Skylar brought that up, because I liked Tulsi Gabbard's, just some of the stuff that she does. I don't know if that makes sense to the listeners, but
yeah, I don't know why she's done some of the things she's done, but I feel like she wasn't going to run for re-election for her House seat. So I think she was just going like all out. She was like, I'm just going to burn down everybody. And I thought it was pretty cool how she went after Kamala. But yeah, I was like, whenever she endorsed Biden, I'm like, what the heck? Like, that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, the DNC not letting her go to the debates, all this stuff that kept happening.
Yeah.
She kept defending herself. I thought there was hope. And then she endorsed Biden, and I was like, oh, no, it's out the window. Forget about
it. Yeah.
Okay, what would you say your top 3 biggest issues are when you look at a candidate to vote for?
Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, probably supporting reproductive freedoms, or workers' rights for sure.
Okay, so with Medicare for all, can you go into more detail about the fine print that you are in favor of? Maybe some of the fine print that you're kind of like, okay, that does need to be changed, if you feel that way.
I'm not really sure what you're like. Is there any like particular candidates? I preferred Bernie Sanders' implementation of Medicare for all to Elizabeth Warren's. I think it needs to be as fast as possible. I think we need to do as little deductible as possible. I think we can do the wealth tax on the top 2% to fund it. Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah. That's kind of, it's because I feel kind of like there's different Medicare for all plans out there, but they all have the same title. And for example, the Green New Deal, when you say Green New Deal, are you thinking of, preserving the environment, or are you thinking about eliminating the need for air travel and the economic security for those who don't want to work, and, the cow farts? Are you thinking about all that? Or are you thinking about, let's preserve the environment and let's find a deal that does it?
I'm thinking about all of it, quite frankly.
So do you support, would you go out and endorse the AOC Green New Deal plan, or would you want to do some revision to it?
I mean, I think it definitely could stand as is.
I mean, if you could have a perfect world, are there any revisions that you see in it that you're like, okay, this needs to happen? Now, I'll give you an example. There are some conservative policies that, because of the bureaucratic system and the DC swamp, I just kind of accept it but if I could, because the greater want of mine is being accomplished, but there are some things where if I could have the perfect world, I would be changing some fine print and policies that I support.
I don't know. I haven't really thought about that because it is pretty hypothetical. So I can't really give you an answer on that right now.
Okay.
Okay, I'm out of questions if anybody else wants to ask.
Well, I had a question. So, like, about the Green New Deal. I think like one of the big parts of it is like building standards and stuff like it. I think one of the parts of, I think it was AOC's like Green New Deal was to like tear down like old buildings that weren't like in compliance. What do you think about that? And just more broadly, like getting, I believe it or not, I sort of care about the environment as like even not as someone on the right, but what do you think about like the likelihood of getting something that serious through? What do you think about?
Like getting it passed, getting it done,
like getting it implemented, and getting enough votes, because like even within the Democratic Party, it's still something that a lot of people aren't, too ready to sign on to.
Yeah,
it's a pretty drastic change.
It would be incredibly difficult, absolutely, and I don't know. I don't have much hope of it passing, but preserving the climate is one of my number one issues. For it to pass, we would have to like get rid of corporate interest in Congress. We would have to get rid of oil lobbying. We would have to get rid of all these things. And I don't see that being a possibility in the near future. I would like it to be a possibility before it's too late, but it will be incredibly difficult. And that's why it needs to come from a presidential push rather than from individual senators and congresswomen and men pushing it.
Okay. Let me go into a little bit more depth, if you will, on the question I asked you about the Green New Deal. The reason I ask you that is not so much, if you, because it is super hypothetical. You're right. I mean, DC. I mean, you're gonna burn so much time trying to get a little revision done. But as far as your personal values, are you kind of okay? We need to get the environment preserved in the end, or because for me as a conservative, put that aside. I care about the environment. I'm not here spitting on my grass and pouring oil everywhere. I mean, I care about it. I tend to turn the water off when I don't need it. I mean, I tend to preserve. But when I saw the Green New Deal, $73,000 per household every single year, and just all of these little fine prints, and there's stuff in there that has absolutely nothing to do with the environment. Absolutely. So that's why I would oppose it. But whenever I oppose it, I'm told I don't care about the environment. So that's why I kind of asked you that question, if that makes more sense.
No, I support a lot of even the leftist policies that don't even necessarily have to do with the environment in there, because climate justice doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't mean much if we're doing a lot to fight climate change while people are still, struggling to make ends meet, et cetera, et cetera. It's difficult to care about the environment and to push things like that when we have like fast fashion industries and things along those lines that are targeted to poor people who are going to give into those because, it's cost effective. So when we have implementations like UBI, Medicare for All, which isn't part of the Green New Deal, but just et cetera, policies like these, we can start to care about the environment even more.
Okay, but those are, at that point is where, I can't put a bill to, make tax cuts and then a bill to, preserve the environment in the same deal. I could put, tax credits to maybe companies that preserve the environment, but you have to separate your policies. I don't think that in my opinion, with that case that you presented, we would just have one day a year where we just get it all done in one bill. I mean, I don't know if that makes sense. I might, I might not be literate.
But if we had to pass everything individually that was in that bill, first off, it's likely not going to pass anyway. Second of all, it takes so freaking long for a bill to make its way through the House. And then even then, there's no guarantee it makes it to the Senate. So I think the intent of putting it all in one bill was just to, expedite that process. But also, parts of it are probably going to be introduced as individual legislation. That's inevitable. But what the Green New Deal is for me is a document of a goal that we should be trying to achieve. It's not going to pass all at once. I think everybody on the left is fully aware of that. but we can still keep pushing it because it is, you know, at this point a foundation or an idea or just something that, you know, is not likely, but it still is achievable.
And
Okay,
I'll kind of add
go
on.
ahead, Skylar. Go ahead, Skylar.
Yeah, like a lot of the bills that get through are these like omnibuses that they just have tons of things on. And for like the Green New Deal, that'd be pretty tough because there are a lot of things that are drastic, but like a lot of the big things, and that's one of my issues, is that there's so much that just is a rider. And like with the coronavirus stimulus, that was one thing. There's all this pork in there, but a lot of bills are that way. Like the farm bill is something that we hear, like, you know, rural congressmen, won't say any names, Jody Arrington, but people, you know, parade this and they're like, look what I'm doing for the cotton farmers and yada yada. But yeah, a lot of bills are like that, where they just consist of like dozens and like dozens of things. It's kind of crazy.
I do have an unpopular opinion. I am optimistic in the lawmakers that I elected. Doesn't mean that I think all of them get their job done. It doesn't mean anything like that. It just means that, you know, I elected them. When they're in, I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, they're there because I put them there. So I'm gonna have hope that they're gonna do their job. Now I can give you the long list
Doubtful.
of Republicans that put pork in stuff. But the point where I kind of get frustrated is the Green New Deal had stuff that had nothing to do with the environment, and the coronavirus package had stuff like solar tax credits in there. What does that have to do with the coronavirus? And so, in my opinion, as someone who's optimistic, I think that there's a time for everything. And if your primary focus, your value, your goal at the end of the day is to preserve the environment, that should be your focus. If you want to get coronavirus aid out there, oh, well, we're not going to get any bills passed this year, so let's just slip something in there. Get out of Congress at that point, honestly. I just don't think that it's a good viewpoint to have where you don't trust any of your lawmakers and you're just like, okay, let's just kind of put the policies in there because they're not going to notice.
I think it's a much worse viewpoint to have the kind of trust that a lot of people have, which is just
absolutely.
faith.
Well, you shouldn't. I'm not saying I should. I full throttle. Like I said, I can give you the list of people that I don't trust. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit around like, oh man, they're not going to pass anything, whatever. No, I mean,
my issue is that
there's a time for everything.
Too much, like that's.
Well, exactly. They pass too much is the point, and that's why I guess conservatives and even some Democrats tend to go against the Green New Deal because it's too much. It's just too much. $90 trillion in the next 10 years. That's not even an accurate number, but it's something ridiculous like that.
I mean, we just spent like $2 trillion in the blink of an eye. So
to stimulate the economy, yeah.
Money isn't even real.
Can you go into more detail on that?
No, that's just what I've been thinking about during this quarantine. Like $2 trillion in a blink of an eye. The trillions of dollars we spend on a military defense budget. We have trillions of dollars in debt across the world. To who? To China, to Russia, etc. But money isn't even like as a concept real. And this isn't political. This is just me like in the shower going like, what the fuck are we doing? It's not.
I mean, I think I kind of understand what you're saying because like basically the Fed could just print off, you know, money printer go brrr, and that kind of thing. But it's like at some point we will reap what we sow, and it's gonna be like our children and grandchildren, and well maybe us if we live long enough. That are gonna,
exactly.
Like,
we may not feel the money. We may not feel it, but what Skylar's saying, our grandkids and our kids are gonna feel it, and they're gonna tell us. Remember that time you said that the money's not there? No, it is. And I'm not in favor of all the debt that we have in this country. Don't take me wrong. I'm not in favor of it. We can have a separate discussion about the military funding. That's a whole other conversation. But the coronavirus bill is completely different than the Green New Deal. If you want to talk trillions, sure, the coronavirus is a $2 trillion stimulus package. Sure. Green New Deal is about 100 trillion roughly. And our national debt is, what is it, at 30 or 25 trillion at this point? But so, I mean, if we put it in proportion, $2 trillion, that's a lot. I think it's 63 miles of money stacked up. But we're talking 100 trillion. And that's why we have problems with these bills that have all.
We'll get there eventually. Like nobody, like in the 80s, nobody probably would have guessed that we would have had over a $20 trillion debt. But
yeah, exactly.
So kind of back to the environment a little bit. What's your opinion on nuclear energy?
I have a difficulty with nuclear energy because while I see its potential, I don't trust the government's implementation to not be, because like the problem with nuclear energy is always going to be the waste and how we distribute that where it goes. And I think naturally that waste is going to tend towards poor areas that we're going to hurt already really vulnerable groups, which is my concern about nuclear. Now, in a perfect world, if we could do it, we could guarantee that waste would be, equitably distributed and that no one would be harmed. Then yeah, I might be pro nuclear energy, but otherwise, I think I'll stick to solar and wind.
So if you don't trust the nuclear energy, you would trust a Biden administration with nuclear energy at its, pursuing it?
I mean, no, but like that's not necessarily the reason I'm voting for Joe Biden. It's not necessarily a policy thing for me with Joe Biden. To some extent it is. I do appreciate that Joe Biden supports a $15 minimum wage, et cetera. But for me, Joe Biden is the lesser of two evils, although both to me are very evil. And in my opinion, it will be easier for me and my platform, the platform that my friends and other organizers and I are going to push to Joe Biden. So
the reason I ask these things is because it's a matter. I said it earlier. It's a matter of values. If you're against, damaging the environment, you would vote for someone who's going to preserve it. But if you see all these policies where they're not preserving it, in your position as a college Democrat on campus, pursuing what you believe, then I would expect that you're out here expressing your viewpoints and hoping to change something in the government that you voted for, if that makes sense.
And I absolutely am. I don't just work on a presidential campaign. In the last semester, I worked on 18 local, 2 being congressional and senatorial races. And, presidential is not the only race that matters. If you continue to push these policies through your congressmen, through your senators, then that's doing the same thing. I'm not always going to agree directly with the policies of the president or even with the senator or any representative from my area. But it does align a little bit closer with what I believe in. So that's what I'll continue to do and push for.
Sure. Just one last thing, because we're running out of time, but on just the final push of the value point is that that's a very good point you made about congressional races, that, the congressional races are, because it's true, local law is more important. But what I've heard on our interview so far is stuff like, it's not going to get passed anyway, so we'll just kind of put it in there. And, it's not going to, you don't seem very optimistic, which is the case of a lot of youth in our generation. But you don't seem very optimistic for someone who has worked on, did you say 18 congressional races or races?
That was less. Not congressional. Not all congressional.
Yeah, not congressional. Yeah, I was like 18.
No,
18 districts.
Yeah, not 18. I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful, but I'm very, very cautious with it, as we need to be. I don't like to jinx things. I'm a big believer in jinxing them. So I'll never say this is definitely going to happen. This is definitely, et cetera, et cetera. So, I can continue to hope and continue to push. I think our generation is going to progressively move towards issues of climate change and Medicare for all and more socialist policies. And I think that eventually these things will happen. My concern with the environment is that it's happening too late. And climate change is an existential crisis. So having hope on that one just seems a little naive. But yeah.
All right, so we're running out of time. I just want to thank you again for being down to come on this. I really think that the worst people are the ones who don't have opinions at all. So I think it's great that we're all young and we all care about politics. Yeah. So
have a good
thanks again.
Hey, yeah, also I want to say thanks for coming on. I know we kind of disagree on a lot, but they're actually, surprisingly, I think if we talked more, you'd find that there are actually maybe some things that we do agree on. But yeah, thanks for coming on and being willing to hash it out.
Sure. Have a good day, y'all.
Okay. Did you want to go ahead and plug any of your social media pages where people can find you?
Sure. I run the Twitter at UDEMS, UDEMS. My personal Twitter is ARAE2201. So if you want to follow me there, have a good one, y'all.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you like this content, please like, subscribe, share it. If you hated it, like, subscribe, and share it. Thanks for tuning in.